Hi, I'm Greg Smith from Four Season Power Sports. Today I'm going to show you the only way to change a tire on your dirt bike. Okay, so you start with your wheel off the bike, obviously. It's got a nice little pad down so I can set the disc or the sprocket on the pad without wrecking it. You need your 12mm wrench to undo the bead lock. You're going to start by loosening this up, loosening the nut all the way off without taking it off. So I'm going to back it all the way out to there. We've still got enough threads to hold it in place. We're going to do the same thing with the valve stem, except this time we are going to take the nut all the way off. And again, this is on the valve stem. Remove the core to let the air out in its entirety. Once the air is out, I'm going to push the bead lock all the way in. Make sure it's fully in. Then we're going to break the bead on both sides all the way around. Okay, so I'm just going to stomp on the bead all the way around. Breaking that bead loose, flip it over. Same thing on the other side. At the bead lock, push it in, push the bead down. Then we're going to take our tire levers, not right at the valve stem, but just off center of the valve stem. Get it under the tire, making sure not to pinch the tube. Meanwhile, pushing the bead of the tire down into the center of the rim, into the deepest spot of the rim. Give yourself as much slack as possible. You can use your disc or your sprocket to hold the tire levers in place. And just one by one, working your way around the tire. Alright, so now I've got the bead on the outside of the rim. At this point, flip it over. Do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Starting at the bead lock, pushing your bead in. And you're going to come off of the outside of the rim. Okay, now got that bead on the outside of the rim, pick it up with your bead lock up. I'm going to drop this tire, drop the wheel into the rim to give yourself a little gap here. This gap I want right on that bead lock, so as I peel the tire off, we don't damage the bead lock. So there, picked it up above the bead lock, just like this. You're going to push the tire off. Just like that. Check our rim strip. And we got some damage there, so we're going to go ahead and replace this rim strip. Hole lines up with the hole in the rim. And again, over the top of the bead lock, like that. And I'm going to just confirm that I'm all lined up. Centering the rim strip. I'm going to take the old tube. We're going to reuse this. It's an ultra heavy duty tube, so it's a good tube. Wipe all the little rubber flakes off of it. And this baby powder is to keep the tube slippery inside the tire. So just going to do this all the way around on the inside and outside. This allows the tube to move independently of the tire so you don't get any pinch flats. So we're going to do the inside of the tire as well. Just enough to kind of coat everything. So now that tube moves pretty nicely inside that tire. So just like we took it apart, we're going to start the opposite. We've got our valve stem at the bottom. We've got our valve hole of the rim at the bottom. So we're going to pull the valve stem out, put it in the hole, and then we're actually going to start the nut, just enough to hold it in place. Okay, just like that. All right, here's the next critical move. We're going to just push that wheel kind of part way into that rim. I'm going to get the tube out of the way. Stand back so it's kind of sticking out a little bit. Like that. And then push down on it. While I've got it held down with my feet, I'm going to just grab the tire on both sides, and I'm going to get this rim to seat inside the tire. Kind of shoving it down. Again, just putting it inside so that our slack spot is right here at the top. So as we come up over the top, we're not going to damage that bead lock. So my tire is on the outside of the rim. Now we're going to push that bead lock up into the tire and start at the bead lock. Pushing the bead in between the bead lock, which is inside the rim, and the rim.
Okay, stop.
So nice and gently, making sure not to pinch the tube anywhere. We're going to put one bead on. Notice how I keep pushing the bead down into the deep part of the rim to make your life easier. As I get to the valve stem, just like the bead lock, I'm going to push that valve stem up. And real carefully, I'm going to pull that bead push the bead lock up, or push the valve stem up just off the center. I'm going to pull that bead into the rim, and again I'm finishing here on the rim where there's no bead lock and no valve stem. And then flip it over. Same thing on the other side. Starting at the bead lock, pushing the bead lock out. Working side to side, getting that bead to seat in the rim.
Okay, I gotta get closer now.
One thing you can do to cheat, if you've got a really tight tire, you can use some WD-40 around the edge of the rim, or some tire lube specifically for mounting tires. Bam! Just like that. So now everything's in place on both sides. We're going to put the valve core back in the valve, and then we're going to air up the tire before we tighten down any of the nuts. So I've got the nut just enough so that I can get my tire inflator on that, but see, it's still loose. And I have not tightened down the bead lock. Air it up. We're going to watch the bead seat properly. It's not seated there yet. You can see it creeping into place. Seated properly everywhere else. I'm going to go pretty high pressure just to get it properly seated, 30-40 psi. Okay, I'm going to look at this side. It looks good now all the way around. I'm going to flip it, check it all the way around. Okay, it looks good. Now I'm going to drop back down to my running pressure. Okay, right there at 11 psi. Now we're going to tighten down our bead lock. And this only gets 12 foot-pounds of torque. So it's not a whole lot, just enough to pull that bead lock against the tire on the inside. Tighten this all the way on until it's snug. There's a rubber O-ring in there, so there it's snug. Notice my nut is not against the valve cap yet, but you do not tighten this nut against the rim. This nut gets tightened against the valve cap. Just like that, to keep it in place. That way, if this tire ever slips, you'll be able to see this valve move. There you have it. That's how to properly change your dirt bike tire.